Speaking of being a giant freaking nerd, it's time, baby. It's time, baby. We gotta talk about Warhammer. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Okay. Here's a random question for you guys in chat, too, before we get into this. Do any of you know who Dan Abnett is? That's the question. Anybody know? Dan Abnett? Oh, yeah, we're going somewhere with this. Oh, yeah. Oh, you thought we were cooking on that Doom shit? Oh, we're cooking on this shit. Buckle in. So Dan Abnett is a writer, very accomplished writer. He's done an incredible amount of Warhammer books. He also has a legendary run of Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, so Dan Abnett actually did write Marvel Comics. He wrote stuff coming out of Annihilation. Really interesting stuff with like Peter Quill. I believe Nova was a part of that team too. I'm actually so interested in it. I want to go back and read Dan Abnett's Guardians stuff, his comics, because like I've been reading so much of his Warhammer stuff. I'm just like, wow, this dude's awesome. So kind of interesting just to put that out there. Dan's also written some stuff like in the Doctor Who universe, very accomplished writer. So anyway, there's this book called Pandemonium. A lot of you Warhammer fans, if you read the books, you'll probably know what Pandemonium is. It's an upcoming book. It's in the Bequin series of novels. It deals with interesting elements of a character known as the King in Yellow. We'll come back to that. Now, the point is, this is a very big deal. This book is a big deal for the Warhammer community, and Dan has sort of promised that this book is going to change the lore in a lot of different ways. Okay, so with that in mind, Dan recently was cornered at a con. He got a fan got some books signed and was able to ask Dan a couple of questions. What Dan revealed is quite interesting. So check this out. So I'll go over this whole thing. A lot of it doesn't pertain to what we're talking about, but let's just read the whole thing. Got to meet Dan Abnett and had some books signed. Actually amazing to meet him in person. Really friendly, and I was happy to answer all questions I had. I'm kicking myself for not taking my special editions of Pariah and Penitent along. I figured since they came signed, there's no point in getting them signed again, which I now regret. He confirmed that he'd like to revisit The Ghost when he has the chance, but currently has no other projects ongoing, having just finished one book and immediately starting writing another one. This is where it gets important. The delay for Pandemonium is because of the potential lore impact it's going to have on the setting and is due to Games Workshop wanting to get the lore in the TV show totally settled first. They apparently don't want to end up having some of the potentially galaxy-shaking events of Pandemonium contradict what they lay out in the show. Now, he talks about other books and some stuff with Alfarius and some stuff like that, but the point is, now this is the big deal. Now, I'm going to break down what this means. Of course, I'm going to bring some speculation to this, but I need you to really understand this. This is potentially the first piece of actual news that we have about the show, about the universe, and what they're planning. So, Games Workshop wanting to get the lore in the TV show totally settled first. Let's start there. Games Workshop, the first thing they're building in the Warhammer Cinematic Universe is a TV show. That was confirmed in the Deadline articles. Technically, Cavill never confirmed this, but Deadline and some of the Hollywood trades did confirm this, okay? So the first entry point for the WCU is a show. Now, this element here is really interesting because they're delaying a big book for the series because they want the lore of the show to be set up properly and not be contradicted by any of the stuff that's about to happen in Pandemonium. Now, what that implies is that they want the book lore to match up with the show and the Warhammer Cinematic Universe lore. Now, you might have said, especially if you're a Warhammer fan, you might think, of course, like, duh, obviously. But that is not always the case. And in fact, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as an example, you have comic book lore, and you have the comic book world, and then you have the MCU. The MCU is different. It takes stuff from the comic books, but it adapts them in a separate way. It technically has a separate lore. Okay, that does not appear to be Games Workshop's or Warhammer's plan. It seems like they want the book lore to match up with the show lore and the lore of the movies, etc. That's a huge W. That's really cool. But it gets even crazier. This could also imply that the show will be dealing in the modern era, meaning 40K rather than 30K. I'll TLDR this for people, but if you're a Warhammer fan, you already know what this means. Warhammer 40,000 is the modern setting of the Warhammer game. 10,000 years before that was the Horus Heresy. Now, the Horus Heresy is the biggest story chunk. It's like the most crazy lore part of the whole setting. It was when the lore and the whole thing of Warhammer kind of took to the next level. You know, had a bunch of novels hit the New York Times bestsellers list. It was a big expansive point for Warhammer in general. And so a lot of people were questioning as we went into this thing with Cavill, would we do 30K or would we do 40K? What it seems like is they want to have the lore connected and they might be doing more modern stuff because this book and this whole setting is 40K stuff, not 30K stuff. Okay, now here's where it gets really fucking nerdy. And this might be where I lose you. I mean, we've already lost some people because, you know, it's whatever. But this is where it gets really, really nerdy. But let me cook here. Let me cook, okay? I could be reading too far into this. But this could potentially hint at who he's actually playing. Let me explain. I just told you all about this Pandemonium book. And I just told you all about how it's this huge thing in the lore. The fans are really excited about it, and it potentially is going to change things, recontextualize things in the lore, set up new major story beats. Okay. Well, at the end of the book that leads into Pandemonium, the big crazy lore thing was this character known as the King in Yellow was revealed to be a character known as Constantine Valdor. Constantine Valdor is one of the characters that Cavill has repeatedly mentioned as far as a character he would like to play in the Warhammer Cinematic Universe. And the reason why is because, I mean, first of all, Valdor is fucking awesome, but also he's the first Adeptus Custodes. And if you didn't know, I guess technically Legio Custodes, but that's also too nerdy. The point is, his favorite army, Henry Cavill, his favorite army is the Adeptus Custodes. That's my favorite army. I love the Custodes. Cavill and I are basically the same person. That's another thing. But the point is, this character, Constantine Valdor, is from all the way back in like 30K. There's a character that lives pretty much throughout the entire setting. After the Emperor is put on the Golden Throne, after he has his fight with Horus, Valdor leaves. And he just disappears. And everybody's like, wow, that's crazy. Where did he go? Well, this King in Yellow figure is, to me, absolutely the most compelling, interesting thing in the new Warhammer lore. This is a person that made his entire kingdom. He has this like huge golden kind of castle looking thing. It's all in this place called the City of Dust, which is a city in between dimensions. It's really crazy. He has custodians. He has these monsters from the warp. He has blood angels that he has manipulated to have wings like Sanguinius. So he has all these mutated winged space marines. This dude is such a threat in the modern Warhammer setting that all kinds of factions are working together to try to stop this guy. That's a big part of what this book series is about, figuring out who the King in Yellow is. And one of the craziest parts of it is what the King in Yellow is apparently looking for is he is looking for the true name of the God Emperor of Mankind. And if he gets the true name of the God Emperor of Mankind, he could potentially change the setting in all sorts of ways, potentially bringing the Emperor back to life, potentially taking the power of the Emperor, potentially shutting down the Golden Throne and allowing the Astronomicon to go out and the webway crashes open and all that sort of stuff. There's all kinds of lore-breaking shit that could be happening. And so the fact that this big anticipated book just happens to be about some of the most interesting modern Warhammer lore with a character that just happens to be one of Cavill's favorites, to be a character that he's mentioned several times as a character he would like to play, and The show itself has forced a delay in that book because it wants its lore to match up with the show lore. Oh my God. Like, they might actually be cooking some incredible stuff. And look, I could gush even more about this. A lot of it, I think some of you won't necessarily understand because you're not just super into the lore. I think that's maybe the most basic version of like bringing you into why this news is such a big deal. We know that Games Workshop and Cavill have some kind of writer's room. They're cooking for the show. I'd love if Dan was involved in that. I don't know that he is. He obviously doesn't confirm it here. But this is pretty interesting. I think it's legitimately some of the first little pieces of information that we were getting about the Warhammer Cinematic Universe. And as we find out more, I will sort of refine what I think is going on. But I'm telling you right now, I guess the most simple way that I could explain it is thumbs up. It feels like they're cooking. It feels like they're cooking hard. Thanks for watching. And if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.